Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. Before we get started on our workbook pages, I want to talk about the rule that Mr. Terry explained to you in his video earlier. So today we were looking at fractions that had different denominators. The rule that Mr. Terry explained was the smaller the denominator, the bigger the pieces. And I just want to show you exactly what that means. So, for example, if I have the fraction 1/2, I'm going to compare it to the fraction 1/3. The numerators are the same, but today we're looking at the denominators, and we notice that the denominators are different. So what this means is we are going to take two pieces of paper that are the same size whole. Okay? If I look at the fraction 1/2, the denominator 2 tells me to split this one whole piece of paper into two equal parts. So I'm going to go ahead and do that as best I can with my marker. So of course I would label each piece with my unit fraction 1/2. If I look at my fraction 1/3, my denominator is a 3. So that tells me that I'm going to take my one whole piece of paper and I am going to split it up into 3 equal sized pieces. So I'm going to do that as best I can, and I'm going to draw 2 lines to make 3 pieces. And of course I'm going to label each part with my unit fraction 1/3. So if I cut up each of my holes into their equal parts, for my fraction that's 1/2, I have this piece, and for my fraction that is 1/3, I have this piece. So you can tell that 1/2 is a greater fraction than 1/3 because I took the whole and I broke it up into only 2 pieces. So each piece is going to be bigger than if I took my whole and I broke it up into 3 pieces. It's the same idea as if you had one candy bar and you had to split it with yourself and one friend, or if you had the same candy bar and you had to split it between yourself and 2 friends. So that's a really important rule to remember as we work through our workbook pages today. Okay, so today we are going to look at only the odd numbers on our workbook page. Again, if you want to do all the problems, I think that's fantastic, but I'm only going to require that you solve the odd problems today. So let's take a look at number 1 together. Number 1 says Hector and Zoe each shade same-sized flags. Hector shades 3/6 of his flag and Zoe shades 3/8 of her flag. Who shades more? So my important information here is that Hector shades 3/6 of his flag. So I'm going to use this visual down here, and I am going to divide Hector's flag into 1/6 size pieces. So in order to do that, I need to draw 5 lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the problem says that Hector shaded 3/6. So I'm going to shade 1/6, 2/6, and 3/6. And then just for my memory, I'm going to label that 3/6. Okay? Then over here, it says that Zoe shaded 3/8 of her flag. So I'm taking the same size whole because they have the same size flag, but I'm breaking Zoe's flag up into 1/8. So in order to do that, I need to draw 7 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I need to shade 3/8. So 1/8, 2/8, and 3/8. So here is my 3/8. So when you look at both of these models, you can tell that Hector shaded more of his flag. 3/6 is closer to 1 whole than 3/8 is. So our question is, who shades more? So on your line, you are going to tell me who shades more. Did Hector shade more or did Zoe shade more? And you can go ahead and pause your video and do that right now. Okay, friends, great job. We are going to move on to question number 3. And question number 3 is really similar to what we did on our workbook pages yesterday. So just to remind you, I am going to use the fraction tools that are in my fraction toolkit to help me compare the fractions and tell which fraction is less than, greater than, or equal. So my first fraction is 5/6. So I am going to build 5/6 with my fraction strip. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a little hard for you guys to see the whole thing, so I'll just scoot it over for you, but here is my 5/6. Okay. And I'm comparing it to 5/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to make sure that your fraction strips are as close as possible. Whoops. Okay, so again, I'll just kind of tilt my camera so you can see. You can see that 5/6 is a greater fraction than 5/8 because 5/6 is closer to 1 whole. Let me just take my camera out and show you guys down here. So again, to reinforce that rule, 5/8 is a smaller fraction because I took my whole and I broke it up into eighths. So those 1/8 size pieces are going to be smaller than if I was breaking my 1 whole up into fractions that were into sixths. Okay, so that's my fraction strips, and that's how I can do that. Just to remind you again of the tools in your toolkit, you can take your fraction circles and you can compare 5/6 to 5/8. And again, you can see that 5/6 is closer to 1 whole than 5/8 is. So we can tell that 5/6 is greater than 5/8. And of course, we can also use our number line tonight to compare our fractions. So I'm going to label my number line 0 to 1 because our fractions are less than 1. I'm going to make my first fraction strip into sixths, so I need 5 lines to do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's 5/6. And then up top, I'm going to divide my fraction strip into eighths, right? So I need 7 lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It can be kind of tricky to do that, so just try your best. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to label it on my number line. I'm going to bring you guys down here again so you can see the whole thing. So as you can tell, 5/6 is closer to 1 whole than 5/8, so 5/6 is greater than 5/8. All right. So just to remind you of our little trick to help us with our symbols, I always put the dot next to the smaller number, and then I draw my lines out from there. So this reads that 5/6 is greater than 5/8. Please go ahead and pause your camera or your video, and work on numbers 5 and 7 using your fraction tools. And when you're done with those, you can go ahead and play the video again. All right, we are going to take a look at number 9. So number 9 says, which fraction is greater than 2/3? So we are going to use our fraction tools, to compare our fractions. So I'm going to build 2/3 with my fraction strips. So 1/3 and 2/3, 2/3. Okay, and then my first fraction is 2/4. So I'm going to take 2/4, and I am going to compare 2/4 to 2/3. I'm going to bring you guys in here again so that you can see that 2/4 is not greater than 2/3. So you can go ahead and grab your pencil and you can cross off letter A because the question is which fraction is greater than 2/3, and 2/4 was less than 2/3. Go ahead and pause your video and work on comparing the rest of the 3 fractions to 2/3 until you find the fraction that's greater. When you're ready, you can go ahead and press play again. Okay, friends, so we've worked a lot on comparing fractions. So numbers 11, 13, and 15 are just like number 9 and just like the problems that we did on the other side of the paper. So I want you to go ahead and pick a fraction tool or maybe use different fraction tools and go ahead and solve 11, 13, and 15. Pause your video, and when you're done with those 3 problems, you can press play. All right, we are actually going to skip down to 18. I know I said we were working on the odd numbers today, but I want to skip 17 and I want to take a look at number 18. Okay, 18 is a review. You will notice that it says 6 times 9. So we have a multiplication equation here. So just to remind you, the multiplication sign means groups of. So what this equation really means is that I have 6 groups of 9. So there are lots of ways that you could represent 6 groups of 9. You could use pennies or nickels, right? And make 6 groups of 9. You could get checkers or Cheerios, anything laying around the house, and you could actually make 6 groups with 9 Cheerios, for example, in each group. Or you can write an array, right? Because this can mean 6 rows of 9. So I'm going to draw my lines to help me for my rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And in each row, I'm going to put 9 circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then you would continue for each. Each row is equal. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Notice how my rows are nice and neat and I matched up my circles. It just makes it so much easier when you have to go back and count up your circles or your counters. So it's just a good way to stay organized. But I want you guys to go ahead and finish. I did the first 2 rows with you. You can go ahead and finish the rest of the rows, and then you can write the product or the answer of 6 times 9. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for working hard. I'll see you next time.